Um, Glad you're here. Today, we're going to talk about, this evening, we're going to talk about a feature in the end user or client Winlink program called Winlink Express that involves visualization or mapping of events that occurred that are derived from various templates that are mappable. This particular demonstration is going to be one using the field situation report, which was developed out of Hurricane Maria and has since been made a little bit more granular by several state agencies at their request. And we used this report just recently in June 1 with a FEMA Region 4, Region 6 exercise that Winlink was a portion of. And it involved both amateur radio and a little bit of something called OpSecure, which is a statewide FCC radio system, and amateur radio. And with Winlink, it doesn't matter where the source of the data comes from. It's all collected in a bucket of your choosing. And in this case, it all was collected to provide situational awareness in an exercise that was a cyber attack exercise on 4 cities, which were Little Rock, Arkansas, Dallas, Texas, Charlotte, North Carolina, and Miami, Florida. This Winlink was not the only thing tested. The FEMA National Radio System was tested. The National Warning System, NAWAS, was tested. They linked statewide P25 LMR public safety networks together. For example, North Carolina linked to Tennessee, linked to Mississippi, etc. And they wanted to include Share's Winlink. And I begged and pleaded, and they allowed then amateur radio to participate, because this is a type of exercise where you don't need to really understand a lot about emergency communication. You read the instructions, you fill out the form, and you send it in over Winlink. In fact, in some places, we recommended that they use Telnet to simulate reality, because you don't want people using the radio when they can use the internet, so you can relieve frequencies that are precious, spectrum that is precious for people that have no other choice but to use the radio. All of these reports were developed by Greg, KG6 SJT, who's here, and put to use by Phil Sherrod, who's written most of the Winlink programs on the end user side as well as the server side. And so this is going to be a little explanation by Phil Sherrod of how we utilize those reports to provide ground truth information throughout Region 4 and Region 6 in this particular exercise. There's been many others that have taken place, and there'll be many more, but this particular exercise also included some GIS work by both the Arkansas Division of Emergency Management and the South Carolina Division of Emergency, the South Carolina Emergency Management Division. And I think that Phil's going to talk for just a short period of time, maybe 30 minutes. And then Joshua Carroll, who works with Adam, Arkansas Division of Emergency Management, is going to explain how he used our output file, one of our output files, with I think Google Earth, to make a very effective visual presentation of the exercise. So Phil Sherrod is on our Winlink development team. He is a member of the Amateur Radio Safety Foundation Board of Directors, and one of our major assets that's moved Winlink forward over the last so many years. So let me introduce Phil Sherrod. first of all. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Steve. That was a kind introduction. I feel like I've been here before for some reason. I'm going to do a live presentation rather than use PowerPoint tonight. So if you can enable me to share my screen, I'll do it that way.
It's enabled.
Okay, now I just have to remember how to do it. Share screen. Let's see here if this works. Screen, let's see here.
Up the top.
Yeah, that's just me on Zoom. Let's see here. Inbox. No. Oh, here we go. This looks more like it. Let's see what this, see if this works. How's that look?
That's it.
All right. Everybody see Winlink Express main screen? Okay.
Yes.
All right, good deal. Well, we're going to talk about GIS mappable forms tonight. And I can't remember if I've given a presentation on this to this group or not. I know I have.
Yes.
Maybe I have. Okay. Well, there have been some improvements over the last few months, and we're going to get into them. It's I hope it's improvements. It's certainly more complicated, so we'll get your opinion on that maybe later. Let's talk a little bit about what we're doing here. What we've added to Express with these GIS mappable forms is the capability of sending in a report using one of our forms in a fashion that encapsulates position information. And when received by Express, we can generate maps and various other items such as summaries, and also generate output files that can be used for things like Google Earth and other applications. So let's look at the beginning here, which forms are suitable or capable of doing GIS functions. So I'm opening up a new message screen here, and I'm clicking select template and going into standard templates, scrolling down, excuse me, mappable GIS forms and opening that. Now we have, I think, close to 100 total forms, somewhere in that region, but only this number of forms are mapping capable. And we've got, a fair number of choices, certainly hospital reports, something specific for Los Angeles, local weather report, severe weather report, which could be useful to lots of places. The Did You Feel It report for earthquakes, a Winlink check-in and check-out form. But the one we're going to look at tonight, which is probably the most popular one, is this one, the Field Situation Report. This is a general report that's very useful from any area that's been impacted by some incident that has knocked out some of the critical resources, to give an up-to-date report on what resources are available and what aren't available. And that information can go in, and we're going to look at some maps in a few minutes, which display it, and you have all sorts of choices for selection to isolate the areas that are having problems or the areas that aren't having problems, and which types of problems they're having. So let's take a look at this form for a second. If you've used this in the past, let's see. Everybody see that okay? Okay. You probably recognize that although we have made some enhancements to it over the last few months, every time we use this in an exercise, such as the one that Steve described, we get feedback, which is great. And from that feedback, we make improvements to the form and gradually evolve it into what we hope is a better form. And so you're going to see some new items on here that weren't on the original form.
The form isn't showing, Phil.
What?
We just see the message. We don't see the form.
Oh dear. Let's see here. You don't see the form. Well, let's see here. Let me try this. I'm not all that
It might be on a different screen.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about. Is there any way I can, let me stop sharing and start again. Let's see, stop sharing. And
you may need to share the desktop.
That's what I'm trying to figure out how to do.
That's on.
Let's see, where is the desktop? Enter new message, Winlink Express, Cortina. Well, let's see here. inbox, field situation. Let's see what this does. That do any good?
Yes. I did
Okay,
it.
Here we go.
great. Okay, good. So you can see the form now?
Yes.
Yes.
Plus we see your desktop.
Move the form
Okay.
and see if WinLink Express is behind it, please.
Okay, let me pull up Express. Let me pull up enter a message. You see enter a message?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So I selected the field situation report, and this came up in my web browser. And I'm guessing that a lot of you have seen this form before, but I'll at least run through it for those of you who have not seen it before. As with all of our forms, once you open it, it appears as a web form in a web browser. In this particular form, the date and time are filled automatically. If you've been assigned a task number, and lots of time when they're incidents, this is, task number, 947 or something like that, they'll tell you. The to field is the person or persons to which you're submitting the report. And there can be multiple addresses here. Typically, of course, it's going to be a call sign. You could also send it to a regular internet email address. You could send it to a tactical address. And another possibility, which I think I would suggest all of you consider setting up for your state, and that is a group address list. Like you might want to set up a group address list for your state. Let's say, some name like, field report -TN, field report -NC, whatever for your state. And then whoever manages the group address list can control who's on that list. So the report may go to multiple people when they submit it. So anyway, you've got the two. You can optionally copy people, a CC field, city, county, state. If you're part of a Native American territory, that would go there. The latitude and longitude. Now, I highly recommend everyone get a GPS dongle. There are various ones out there. The one that I have is $35, I think, on Amazon. But there are other people who are using $15 dongles that seem to work just fine. Also, it makes life so much easier because it gives your exact position, and that's filled in automatically in the form for you. Running down the list here, we've got these are frequently referred to as lifeline resources. And I want to get, by the way, I'd like to get your opinion. You don't have to, I don't want to call for everybody to speak up, but one of the things we put on here at the request of one of the state agencies, or maybe a couple of state agencies, was distinguish between POTS landlines, plain old telephone set landlines, and VOP landlines. I'm not a big fan of splitting those, but I'd be interested, maybe at the end of the presentation, we can get some discussion about whether you think it's helpful to have distinguish between POTS and VoIP landlines. Then we got cell phones, and we got, once again, this is something that was added, cell phones voice calls or cell phones text functioning. Again, I guess there are some occasions where one might work with the other wouldn't, but I don't know how often that is. AM broadcast stations, TV stations, public waterworks functioning, commercial power functioning, that's an important one. Commercial power stable. And for stable, we've got yes, no, no would be brown blinking lights. So if the commercial power is functioning, I guess that would be a yes. But if it's going on or off, or if it's they're brown out or whatever, then I guess you'd say no for brown out. This is another one which I think is a little confusing. The fact we've got commercial power functioning and commercial power stable. And we got internet, NOA, NWS, weather radio, whether it's loud and clear. Additional comments, your point of contact, be your name, and I recommend always putting a cell phone in with it. And then you submit it. I guess I ought to fill this out, actually. Let me just go ahead and do it. I'll say task 1 before PHS. Let's see here. No, this is not a critical event. We'll say Brentwood, Williamson, Tennessee. And fortunately, at the moment, I don't have landlines, so it's on the, yeah, fortunately, at the moment, everything is working. Yeah. Yep, public water. Yeah, I got water. Commercial power, yeah, I know it's yeah, it's stable. And yes, I have internet, otherwise I wouldn't be talking to you. I have no idea if I have weather radio available. So let's fill in my name and phone number. Okay, and submit it. And it says, yeah, okay, you can close this form now because it's been submitted. And somewhere here it is. So now we're now back to the message creation screen. And you notice that I put in W4PHS and it shows up here the to address. It's generated a subject line, field situation report, date and time, and so forth. It's attached a couple of files to it, which have the information that I entered. And then it's also got a textual report. So if you sent this report to someone, let's say through an internet email that they're not running Express, they can't map it. But nonetheless, at least it's got the text version of all your answers to the questions, so they can still look through here and say, yeah, you got water, yeah, you got power, and so forth, so on. So that's all good. And then you post it the outbox and you send it like any other Winlink message. Okay, so that's the submission end. That's what the clients in the field would do. Pretty simple. And I think you could train someone who has never seen Winlink. I think you train somebody who's coming in and using this to do that. Certainly in less than 30 minutes. I really think you could do it in 15 minutes if the person's fairly bright, because it's just click here, select this form, check the buttons and submit. So it's pretty darn simple. So that's the submission end. Now, what happens when it's received? Well, as I mentioned earlier, you can have more than one recipient, and frequently you do have more than one recipient. And when it's received by these recipients that they're sent to, as soon as a message comes in, as soon as it's been downloaded, either by a telnet or by a HF, or could even be, I guess, VHF, as soon as that message comes in, the information that was submitted, including the latitude and longitude, is assimilated by Winlink Express. That's done at the point the message is received. You don't have to wait until you actually click on the message or view it. It's just poof, as soon as it comes in, as soon as it's downloaded, instantly it's been assimilated into a database for that type of form. And you can then begin to display maps. So up here on the toolbar, if you look kind of near the middle, you'll see this little globe. See, I'm kind of highlighting it. And if I click on that, I get the map control screen. And we'll come back to this and go over it in a little more detail later. But as I mentioned, there are different types of reports. So you may have been receiving local weather reports, check-in forms, and other things. But we're going to say we want to look at the reports from the field situation report. And then now that I've selected that, I'm going to display the map. And this is the data that was received from that exercise that Steve mentioned, region 4 and region 6. We also got some reports outside those regions, so that's okay too. And you can see we've got a pin on the map indicating the location of each report. It's interesting, we have some people offshore. I don't know what's going on there, but it's kind of interesting. But let's take this guy out here in Texas, West Texas. If I mouse over this pin, we get a short summary. It says who the sender is, the date and time when it was submitted, how old this report is, the subject, and there's some other optional things that can show up if it's triggered some filters that I'll get to in a minute. Like maybe we're filtering on whether they don't have power, and it would say, oh, this guy doesn't have power. But that's the mouse over just by putting the cursor on it. If I left click on the pin, then I get a full report. And so here we have every item that was back on the field submission report, like landlines functioning, yes, and no comment, and cell phones functioning, yes, and so forth, so on. And this was submitted by W5JDO, who's J. David Overton. And we have the date and time, and we have the latitude and longitude, and even the range and bearing from our position. So we can, if we see something which is interesting, we want to look at it, we can simply mouse over it or click on it and get the full report that was submitted by that person. Well, now this is all nice, it makes a nice visual picture, but where it really gets interesting and useful is when you start filtering reports by various criteria. Up here on the toolbar at the far left, we've got this button, Set Filters. And if I click it,
Bill, can you make that screen a little bit larger?
I don't know how to do that, Steve. This is a pretty high resolution screen. I don't,
No,
anybody know how to enlarge it?
Just not the screen. I'm talking about the map.
Oh, yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
Yeah. Hold on. Let's see here. I'll just stretch it out some. Yeah. How's that?
It's the same. But go ahead.
Okay. Well, it should be bigger. I stretched it out.
There it is. Now it is.
Okay. All right. Anyway, back to the filters. So I click Set Filters, and I get a
Can you
pretty
make that a little
busy.
bigger too? I'm
No,
sorry.
I can't do anything with that one. I'm sorry.
All right.
This used to be a little bit bigger, but I actually shrank it and compacted it at the request of the Wave Talkers guy. So it now is actually more condensed than it was. In any case, we've got a lot of stuff on the screen, and I don't want to take up too much of our time. We're running, things are going, I need to finish this thing up, and we got a lot of stuff to cover. So I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. The best way to learn this is to experiment. Either have an exercise or just get some friends to send you some reports, and then you can display the map. It even has 2 or 3 reports, doesn't matter, and go into the filtering. You can see, but up at the top here, you can filter reports by age. For example, let's say an incident's been going on for 2 days. Well, the situation today, or even this afternoon, may be considerably different than it was yesterday. For some areas, power may have come on, cell phones may be working, they weren't working yesterday, or it could have gone the other way around. Maybe they've gone downhill. Maybe they had power yesterday, but today it's gone downhill, but they've lost power. So if you check this button, you can then limit it by some number of hours. Let's say you say, I only want the last 6 hours of reports displayed, because you want to know what's going on right now. Or if you want to go even more detail, you can limit the range, you can limit the starting date time, and limit the ending date time. So you can isolate a particular time. Like, so maybe you want to see what it was like yesterday afternoon and compare it with this afternoon. So you can set the date limit to select only reports submitted yesterday or only reports submitted today, and so forth. Down here, this is the main body of it. There is one entry in this for every item that had the radio buttons back on the form: AM radio, broadcast, cell phones, commercial power. This is alphabetized, so it's not in the same order it was in the form. It's alphabetical, but here are the landlines functioning and so forth, so on. And you can, when you select, let's say we want to have know the people that don't have internet. So on the internet functioning line over here, I'm going to say no. So I want to know who does not have internet, and I'm going to mark those people in red. Okay. And let's see here. Let's see if we got any people. Oh dear, looks like nobody. Nope. Looks like we don't have any people in this example
It's
that
got
have
the
internet.
date. You got the date wrong.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Hold on. Turn off the date filter. Let's try it again. There we go. Here we go. That looks better. Over here, was Dallas? Was one of the cities, Steve?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's that. They were told as a goal of the exercise, they were told to say they didn't have internet. So that's why we got red markers there. And looks like we've got some red markers down here in South Florida, and looks like one or two up here.
Charlotte.
So that's showing us where we don't have internet. Now you could do it another way. These radio buttons down here at the bottom that I'm going back and forth on, one of them says display all markers, but use colors to indicate the selected cases. And the selected case in this case is not having internet. The other option is to display only markers selected by filters. So if I choose this radio button, then only the ones that don't have internet are displayed. Let's look at that. And sure enough, boom. So now we've uncluttered it, and it's easier to see the places that don't have internet because only those pins are displayed. Okay, let's go back here at filters, and we can easily switch back. There's another thing here. There's this checkbox here. I'll check it and uncheck it. You can sort of see the effect. It says include text fields such as comments as filter items. And you might recall back on the form when we were filling it out, we had the radio buttons like, do you have commercial power? Yes, no, or unknown. But there was a text field, a comment field under that, where you could put a comment in if you wanted. Normally, this list omits text fields. It only includes the radio button or checkbox fields. But if you want to include the comment fields, then you can check this little checkbox right here, include text fields. And so let me check it and look what happens to this list. When I check it, a bunch of new items show up in the list. If I uncheck it, they go away. So let me check it again. And you can see we've got various things. Now, some of these could be useful for isolating reports, like at county. Down here, we've got state. For state, for example, I could put in TN, Tennessee. And which means that when I put multiple words in separated by comma, if any of the words match, then it matches. So it would, if the state field, which you type into, has either TN or it has Tennessee, someone typed it all in, then that would select it. So let's display only markers selected by that. And let's get rid of the internet. Let's see, I still have the internet? Yeah, let's ignore internet for the moment and just look at all the Tennessee reports. Okay, so let's try this. So I've got either TN or Tennessee and display only markers. Okay, boom. There we have all the reports that are just from Tennessee. We've isolated Tennessee from all other states and gotten this map. Now, as you can see, there are a lot of different choices here in the filters. And sometimes you may want to filter by category, by location, like I've done here with Tennessee and TN. Other times you may want to do it by looking for no internet or no power. Sometimes you may want to filter by date ranges, whatever. And when you start going back and forth, you're trying to analyze these maps, and you say, oh gosh, I need to turn off the internet because I want to turn on the Tennessee filtering and so forth, so on. So to make life easier, I've got the concept of what I call filter sets. So right now I have it set up to show only Tennessee reports. So right here's a button, store current selections as filter set. So the current selection is to select the Tennessee reports. So I click store current selection as filter set, and I put in here as the name of the filter set, Tennessee, and save it. So now if I choose some other things and I want to go back and look at the Tennessee sites, and I've got other filter, maybe I'm filtering on no internet, no power, whatever. If I want to go back and look at just the Tennessee people, all I have to do is select this Tennessee filter set, and boom, everything is put back. The filters are reset to, to this be TN and Tennessee, and all the other settings, the radio buttons down here and everything, are put back the way I had it when I defined the Tennessee filter set. So you can create any number of filter sets that go with this map. You may want to have a filter set which says no power. One, this is no internet, whatever. And you can, somebody comes up and says, well, where don't we have power? Say, oh, I'll show you. And just select the no power filter set, and boom, there's the map with no power. How about no internet? Okay, well, here's the no internet filter set, and boom, all of a sudden you're displaying the no internet. So, very handy to make it easy to save a set of filters and go back. Okay, that's enough on the filtering. As I said, this is, there are a lot of options here, and I don't have time to go through all of them. If you want, we can have a follow-up session another time where we could, get into more detail on this, but that's enough of that for tonight. Going back to the map, of course, you can move around and so forth, so on. There's also a new feature here that called summary. And let me change this for a second. And the summary gives a textual report from the summary of all of the reports that have come in. It's like a number of unique reports, 886. And what it means by the word unique, what it says, number of unique reports, is that if multiple reports were submitted from the same location, it only uses the most recent report. And the reason for that is this morning, the power may have been out at your home, and in the afternoon, the power may be on at your home. Well, the current situation is power on. So that's what we want to display. So it uses the most recent report from each location, but it's got a count and percentage for each thing. For example, cell phones functioning, 89% was yes, and 9% was no, and so forth, so on. And you can up here select the summary for all reports or only the matching reports. And I think I have the Tennessee reports. So this would be a summary for the Tennessee reports because I'm currently filtering on Tennessee. So you've got 59 Tennessee reports in this summary for them, or go back to all reports, and we've got 886 unique ones. That's a summary for that. And you can copy the clipboard, you can print the report. If you copy the clipboard, then you could paste it into a Winlink message and send the report to somebody else just as a textual report. Getting out of the map for a second here, and I'm going to try to wrap this up because I know we have other things to be presented here, so forgive me for going long. But I want to talk about how we generate the file that's going to be used for the Google Map and other things. There are several export options here. And if I click export, well, let's see, actually, what we really want to do is look at these items down here, generate CSV file and generate KML. KML stands for Keyhole Markup Language, something Google developed. CSV file, that's a rather common comma-separated value file. Let's take a look at the CSV file generation. That's more common. If I click generate CSV file, I select whether I want the column delimiter to be comma or tab. Formats of dates, you got various choices. If you want to limit which reports are to be included in the CSV file, you can do that. There's an option here, which is kind of an interesting option. I turn on or off. If you check that, generate new CSV file when reports are received. If you check that box, then every time a new report comes in, without doing anything manual, you don't even have to be at the computer, it automatically pumps out a new CSV file that includes the new report that's come in. So if you've got some sort of a fancier external GIS program, which maybe is every 15 minutes checks and reads the CSV file and generates some sort of dashboard or map, if you check this box, then that program can have access to the latest reports without you doing anything. Just automatically, boom, CSV files created. And down here, you just type in the file specification, C:\/ whatever, for where you want the CSV file to be created. And it writes all the data, including comments, position report, everything else, into the CSV file. And then a number of states have written what they call dashboards, which read the CSV file and generate their own custom reports, sometimes charts, maps, whatever, based on the CSV file that comes out of here. So that's the flow from the creation and submission of a report and then coming into Express at one or more sites. Remember, this doesn't have to go one site. You can send it to any number of sites, and every one of them will have the same data. And when it comes in, it's assimilated, put in the database. It's immediately available for mapping. It's available for generating CSV files for all the filtering and so forth, so on. So I think I'm going to end it there. I don't know if we have time for just like a couple of questions, and then we've got to turn it over to the other speaker. Any quick questions before we wrap
Could
my
you,
part up?
do you have the June 1st exported text file you could stick on here so people could take it and practice with it?
Well, I could send them. Yeah, here's what, let me go back into here just one moment here. We talked about generating a CSV or KML file. There are two other options over here. One is export form data, and that exports it in a form the same way it's stored internally in Express, the same database format that's used here, which is different than a CSV or KML. It's an internal format used by Express. And you can send that file to someone else, and that person can then import the data and suck it into their Express. And then they've got exactly what you've got. They've got all the information, all the comments, everything. They can do filtering, they can do maps, they can do everything. And
Well,
yes, I
Phil?
do have this.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay, yeah. So there's a little file marker on the
Yeah, I'll tell you
chat.
what, it's actually it's on a website, download site. Let me email that to someone, maybe tonight or tomorrow. I can email it to you or whoever
Well,
to
wait,
distribute
can you just put it in the chat right now?
I don't know, because I don't know exactly what to call the file, Steve. So I need to
Do a new one.
Well, I'll tell you what, let me, while the other speaker's talking, let me try to find it out, okay?
All right, sure.
And I'll give it to you. Okay, so anyway, any other quick questions before we try to wrap this thing up here? I don't want to take too much time. Okay, all right. Oh, here's a hand is up. Brett, what's your question? I think you're muted.
Just a quick question for you. That's a filter map. There you had state. Is there any chance of you putting in province so we could use it up in Canada?
Well, what we ought to do is just change the label state or province, I guess.
Just if you can, I mean, just so we could use this program up in Ontario. Right?
Sure. I mean, I hate to be so provincial, we call it state, but I mean, I hate to ask you to put a province name and a state name, but certainly that would work. I mean, you know,
it's only suggestion. If it doesn't work, that's fine. We can.
No, it would. I mean, it doesn't care the fact that we labeled a state and you're putting a province name doesn't matter to us. I mean, you know, as long as you're not offended by putting. Okay.
Not in the least.
Well,
No,
just
You got
just
counties and parishes too, but you know, they're all the same.
okay.
Yeah, just put your province. Just put your province in the state name field.
Okay, that's fine. I won't bother you for that. I just was curious. That's all.
Okay.
Thanks for your time, Phil. Appreciate it.
Okay. All right. Well, let's give the other speaker a chance here. So let me stop sharing. And if we have time at the end, we can come back and talk some more. So I'm gonna stop.
Thank you very much, Phil. Appreciate that greatly. There's a lot more to this than we have time for today. There's quite a few discussions that have taken place in the past. This was just to be the addition since this was presented here last. And hopefully we'll be able to add some more to this as our agencies beat us up about what it is they want and don't want. The next person I wanted to ask to speak is Joshua Carroll, who has a long career in IT. He has a long career with software architecture, engineering, cybersecurity, several years experience in training development, curriculum writing, classroom teaching, and he works with the Arkansas Division of Emergency Management, and he helped develop something that is a little bit different than the large, huge, expensive GIS programs that are usually used in state government and county government. And I felt it was interesting and could be applicable to a lot of new people who are interested in this, who may or may not have some GIS experience. So Joshua, if I've left out anything, you just go right ahead and fill in the blanks. Thank you for showing up, and we're waiting to hear from you.
All right. Well, thank you very much, sir. Appreciate the introduction. Give me just a moment here, and I'm going to also share my screen. Do that one right there. All right. So I'm going to start off with just a quick introduction to what we've created, and it serves a little bit of a different scenario than what you just saw. As he said, my name is Joshua Carroll. I'm AA5JC, extra class operator. I have just over 30 years of experience in IT, and my favorite job that I think I had the most fun with was my last one when I got out of the Army. I was a cyber terrorism first responder. So that was obviously a lot of fun and very interesting. Currently, I serve as a global solutions architect for a payments processing company. Earned a few certifications along the way. All right, so let's get down to the nitty gritty. When J.M. Rowe came to me, he had identified several needs, things that we needed in order to serve our customers better. And in Arkansas, our customers, for the most part, are ADAM, the Arkansas Division of Emergency Management, the National Weather Service, and of course, the general public. So with the intention of doing anything we can do to help protect lives and property, he came to me and said, look, Winlink can produce KML files that'll map data, but in Arkansas, we have a problem there. The Shares Racy station is actually located away from the EOC. It's not far, but it's a separate building, just on the same property. And unfortunately, it's also on a different network, completely different network. So there's no way for us to share information or screens across the network directly. So we needed a way to do it, and we needed a way to publish this data through the internet so that the data would be accessible not only in the EOC, but also to any other decision makers, agency leaders, state government leaders that needed to see this information. So that was my challenge. And JM, he also added a little icing on the cake to, if that wasn't easy enough or that wasn't too easy. He said he felt it was key for us to display, that it would display in a large format on a, say, a projection screen, or on multiple screens, not even connected. So two people in the same room can have it up. Somebody in the other side of the state, someone in a different state could be looking at it. And of course, it needed to be real-time, dynamic, and instant. So sitting here talking through it without actually hitting forward. Okay, let's try this again. So we also wanted to make sure that our customers, like I said, could access the data from anywhere. For example, if the governor is at the governor's office, we have tornadoes ripping through the state. National Weather Service obviously is in their office. You've got some people at the EOC doing their business. You have people at the EOCs of every county who are busy doing their thing as well. And so we wanted to make sure that we enabled all of them simultaneously with that same information. And we're not talking about just simple screen shares or anything like that. The other big key that we determined, we decided we wanted is no operator intervention required. That this would always be available, even if hams are not present in the EOC. Of course, being something that's ham radio related, it had to be low or no cost solution. And of course, like I said, our goal, our biggest goal, was to provide leaders, that's our agency leaders and our government leaders, with actionable information at a glance. So we didn't want them to have to look at, okay, well, there's something going on. All right, no, there's no briefing needed. You look at it, now you can make a decision. That's it, end. And of course, lastly, it needed to be user-friendly. ArcGIS driven solutions, they provide too much information, which can be as bad as too little information when seconds matter. You've really got to turn down the squelch, see what you need to see, and drive on. So what did we come up with? Our solution was to create a dynamic situational awareness map that is instantly available as needed. It has the ability to provide layers of information. So right now we can display things like operators that are included in the event or checked in on a net, any weather, that's severe weather polygons and so on, as well as any Winlink reports that come in. Data can be easily filtered. If you're not interested in the weather, turn it off. If you are not interested in seeing where the ham operators are, you can turn that off. Not a big deal. Another big ask was after the very first time I demonstrated this to a group here in Arkansas, somebody said, I think it was actually our section manager, Jay Ferguson. He said, it'd be nice if you could tell the difference between a report that just came in and one that is a few hours old. I thought, yeah, it would be nice. So that's exactly what I did. The system is set up currently to display any icon in the last 24 hours. However, as icons age, it will continuously fade away. And so when I show you the demonstration here in a moment, you might see some icons that are a little brighter, some are easier to see than others are transparent. That's because they're nearing the end of that cycle. They're nearly expired. They're going to drop off and just disappear into the ether when it's all done. Reports can come from unlimited sources. So what I mean by this is, let's say we are using the fantastic tools that Winlink has provided. They, people are sending in forms left and right. Let's say we've got someone who is running a net in Northwest Arkansas. We've got our net here in Central Arkansas. We've got this massive severe weather event that's just wreaking havoc down through the state. They can have this same system, our solution, deployed up there, and people are emailing them reports via Winlink. They're emailing us reports via Winlink. Both of those systems are feeding data into the same map very easily. All right. This solution is completely cloud native. And if you're not familiar with that term, think no virtual machines. That's the easiest way to put it. There's no virtual machines involved. It is all cloud native, meaning it's running on, it's not quite bare metal. It's not anything like that, but it runs headless. So that's to say, the biggest downfall of a cloud-based solution is, first thing people do is spin up a virtual machine and install, software that's the same way you would install it on a desktop. The problem with that is you're paying for that virtual machine 24 hours, 7 days a week, no matter if it's doing nothing. The difference, if your solution is cloud native, you don't pay for anything unless it's being used. So instead of paying, for a virtual machine, 45 to, depending on how many processors it has and how much RAM and everything else, you could pay $45 to upwards of $250 a month. Or if it's a cloud native system, you could pay $2 to $5. That's it. If it's being used. If you go through an entire month and it's not in use, you don't pay anything. So the other benefit, of course, to being cloud native is that we can easily set up high availability and failovers. Currently, the solution that we've deployed is in Microsoft Azure. So it's set up in HA environment with dual redundancies. No login is required to view the information that you see. Of course, this all is public information. It has to conform to FCC rules. So anyone can access the information as it comes out. And lastly, I love to tout this, is that it is open source and released under an MIT license. So anyone is welcome and encouraged to jump in and be a part of the solution if you want to. All right, so here's a quick demo. Here's just an image just in case the demo gods fail me. That never happens. All right, let's take a look at the exact same event that the other speaker showed earlier. And in this case, we're actually looking at the forms as they come into Winlink. So as soon as they come in, we see that there's a new message and it pulls out the form, takes a look at it. And from that, we're actually generating different icons depending on not only what form they submitted, but what did they submit as part of that form. So for example, these, if you see it, it's a little radar blip screen is what that is. That is your field situation report. And I can tell you right now, there's going to be everything working on it. I don't have to look at the report. I know that everything is an answer of yes, except for the emergency or life safety need. Everything is A-okay because of that one icon. This note next to it, a local weather report. Obviously, if you're familiar with the local weather report, you know that it's typically used for, I think it's really geared toward not severe weather, which is why there's a separate severe weather report. So as you open that one, it's just going to tell you what is the temperature, the humidity, and so on when they sent in this form. As I look around, I think I sent one in just as a test so I could demo this. Here is a severe weather report, and in this one I did mark it as, let's see, where is it? I'm trying to find, yeah, here is a funnel cloud. So in this exercise of a report, I did submit that there was a funnel cloud here, which is why you see a tornado or a funnel cloud right there on the icon. Again, making it so that our leaders can make actionable, they have actionable information in front of them. They can make decisions immediately, just at a glance. There's a tornado there. Okay, we'll get those guys from Hot Springs to start heading to the northeast. Done. Okay, so here's, I'm going to start backing out a little bit and show you at a glance. This is again of that same exercise where we had 4 cities that were without internet, without cell phones. At a glance, you can see there's a cluster of those red cell phone outage icons. You can see there's a little cell phone on them. So you know something is wrong right here. You see one of those here. Okay, that's just somebody who forgot to pay their bill accidentally. You see one down here, one here. There's another cluster over here in North Carolina. If we go down here, there's another cluster in South Florida. So you can easily see where your problem areas are. Another feature, let's see, as we were looking through these, if you're not, like I said, if you're not interested in those field situation reports, all right, let's get rid of them. You don't care about the local weather? Okay, here's only the Winlink check-ins and the severe weather reports. Let's get rid of that one. There we go. Now we don't have any of them up there. All of the Winlink data is gone. There we go. And one of the things I wanted to point out is we've also started to incorporate from other agencies. Of course, the National Weather Service, that's a low-hanging fruit. They make it so easy. They have lots of different API endpoints that they expose to us. Of course, this is live and accurate information. Here's a special weather statement. Looks like they've got a strong line of thunderstorms heading through there. I believe this one's a flash flood warning. It sure is. And they're using what I'm doing is I'm actually using the same colors as they are as well. This is not an image overlay. It is a vector. It's being drawn in KML as it comes across as a CAP feed. So, and that is live for the entire continental United States. So that's, just another thing that can help drive decision makers. Now, the last one here that you might notice, if I get rid of both of those, you'll see there's all these green dots right here in the center of the state of Arkansas. What is that? Well, that is one of a net. That's actually one that I just conducted on Tuesday, just so that I would have some information here to share with you. And that's actually driven from NetLogger. if anyone has been on a HF net recently, you probably have been introduced to NetLogger at some point. It's a great application. It's available for both Windows and Mac, and you basically can run a net in it. You know who all is logged in. You see if it's a worked all states or awards type net, you can actually see whose turn it is as you go, and you can see when your turn is. There's a little chat feature in there where people can talk to each other. But the point here is, again, with the idea in mind that in Arkansas, the most common emergency that we have is weather related. It's important as a Skywarn net control that I know where everyone is. I know that they're checked in, but I might not remember where Cherokee Village is. So, you know, it helps to know that, okay, when I'm looking at the weather alerts, and of course there aren't any in Arkansas right now, but as I'm looking at this, if there's a tornado bearing down right here in this area, I know that I can talk to this operator, call him back at on the radio, Kilo Charlie 5 Echo India Kilo. Can you safely look outside and tell me what you see? Do you see anything out there? Just that quick without having to worry about anything else. So bringing all of this information into one place is what we hope can, again, drive our leaders' decisions and hopefully save lives and property. Again, that's like I said, that is our primary goal. Now I'm going to go ahead and minimize this real quick. I will show you how do you get there. If you want to see the data right now, how do you do it? I'll show you. Here's my website, aa5jc.com. Easy to remember. Right here on the menu is SITREP map. It's the second one on the map, second one on the menu. And let's see, I'll just zoom in on this just a little bit so you can see it a little better. First, of course, install Google Earth. Step one. It's free, takes just a second, available Windows, Mac, Linux, you name it. Select the options below. Do you want to see Winlink forms? Okay. What is the recipient's call sign? So that's going to filter it out because I may not want to see the reports that are sent to Victor Echo 3 Zulu Bravo Golf. I don't want to see his stuff up there in Canada, but I want to see the ones that were sent to, for example, AA5JC or W3TDH here in the States over in Maryland. So I could put W3TDH, and then assuming he's running Winlink, he's receiving reports, and he has the client software installed for this. It's just a little console. You just double click, let it run, minimize it. It takes care of the rest. It'll collect your messages, send them up, store them in the database. You can choose to include NetLogger check-ins. There has to be an active net going currently. So even if all you do is just run over to NetLogger, open one so that you see it in the list, find it. Here's OMIS 40 meter net. I'll go ahead and pick that just because there's typically a lot of people on it. And severe weather polygons, why not? Let's just include it. Generate KML. And here's the cool part about this. You do not ever have to do that again, ever. Because all of it is built with what's called in KML, what's called network links. And so think about it, think of it as a web page that automatically refreshes itself. So once I've done that, I can hit download the KML file. I can click on it. Yep, there it is right here. I'm going to go ahead and turn off this old one and back out some. Here we go. So see all those green icons everywhere? Those are people who are right now logged in to the 40 meter OMIS net on HF from coast to coast. So just again, it just adds into that information for managing an emergency. So that's how you do that. For other information, or if you're interested in checking out the code or you want to download the client software, that is all available out at GitHub. Once the page comes up, there we go. It's under Joshua Carroll, and then the name is GIS Communicator. I will have the URL on the screen in a moment, so you can take a screenshot of that if you want. But down here, it does describe more about the communicator, the whole system. It does describe the three parts of the application. You have the reporter, which is the client application, the receiver, which is a web service, a function app, and the GIS server, which actually hands out those KML files. Release here for download. And then, of course, if you find any problems or issues as you're trying it out, you can just file those here. Just submit that as an issue, and I or someone will try and take a look at it. All right. So as promised, I'm going to minimize this. Let's go back to Keynote. There we go. At least I thought we would. All right, and then here are those URLs, just in case you want to take a screenshot. And while I'm waiting, is there anyone that has any questions?
Hey, Joshua, this is Phil.
Yeah.
Very, very impressive, very nice system you got there. And you're using the KML files generated by Express as the input to your system, is that right?
No, sir, that's not.
Okay.
No, we're actually, we're parsing the attachments that come off of the emails because that was faster than waiting on the KML file to, I never could get it to automatically generate. But also the bigger reason was simply because needed a little bit more granular control over what icons were used for the map.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Tomatoes?
Tom had a question. He wanted to
or
know about a
otherwise?
tutorial.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Tom wants to know if there was a tutorial to get operators started on using this.
No, there's not. No, you just you can go to the website and there's plenty to read there, and that's should be pretty self-explanatory.
Okay. And Steve posted a file from the June drill that can be used on an external GIS program, and Phil posted a field situation report that can be used within Winlink to play around with the filters.
I'm going to post in 2 seconds, as soon as it arrives, I'm going to post one that's larger than the exercise before, during, and after, just so you'll have several files as soon as
Okay.
it gets there that you can use with Winlink, import into
Okay.
Winlink Express. Thank you.
Anyone else? Raise your hand or ask a question in the chat.
Thank you, Tanya.
And we'll wait for Steve to post his files in the chat.
Hey, Barry, well, this is Phil. While we're
Go
waiting,
ahead.
I was just going to comment that, you know, we went through a lot of stuff pretty quickly today, particularly on the filtering screen, which has a lot of options. And the best way to learn that is to import the file that either I posted or that Steve is about to post. And then actually, if I could share my screen for just a minute, I can show you how to do the import of that file. Can I? May
Go
I
right
do
ahead.
that? Okay.
Sure.
Let me share my screen again because they need to know how to do it.
Not
Okay.
hearing any other questions.
Here, so you click the globe icon of the toolbar, and over here on the right hand side of this map control screen, there's this button, import form data, and click that, and then you just type in the file specification. It's a TXT file. You can browse for it if you need to, and then click use the file name, and it'll import the data. And once you've imported it, then you're going to have the same map, or in Steve's case, you're going to have even a more deluxe map. He's got some additional points, even more complete map than I have. So you'll have all of this. And then once you've got that, you have everything I have, that Steve has, then you can get in there and start playing with filters and experimenting and really learning how to use it. It's much easier to learn how to use something by experimenting with it, at least I find, than have somebody lecture about it. So just import the data that Steve's about to post or that I posted, and then you'll have all of this. You'll be able to generate a map just like this, and you'll be able to set filters and experiment with it. Any
Okay.
questions about that? You need to see it again or anything? So again, right here, so going back to the beginning, click the globe, and on the right-hand side, click import form data, and then put in the name of the file that you want to import. And that's all you have to do. And then you'll have it all ready for mapping.
All right, that's awesome.
Then you click on that main page, you again click on the globe, which is how you get to all of that.
Right.
Well, thank you both, gentlemen. Appreciate that. Two different methodologies. There's many more. It's not an easy subject. Phil, I think, has made it very easy. If you just get in there and goof around with it. There's those people that know, there's 2 or 3 people in the Winlink development group that can assist you with this. And anybody that is in our group would be either happy to do it, or if they don't know how, they'd be happy to lead you to the promised land with somebody that can help you get these things moving. The advantage of it, again, is that it provides, sort of like Skywarn, it provides information with a lot less training than is needed to become a commu of a major agency. And it allows you to, or any individual to, wherever they're located, to provide this same information, regardless of what they know or don't know. Now, once they're queried, that may be a different issue, but to provide the initial information on the form can be of great value to an agency that's looking for information after a hurricane hit or a tornado has hit or any mass casualty event where such information is needed. And again, keep in mind, lastly, that this is not the only report. There are many, many reports, many of which are mappable. And it's a dynamic situation. Somebody will recommend we put in a report. We put in the report. The people that actually need it want it changed. And it's a constantly moving target. But with each move, there's improvement. And of course, that's where we're headed. Thank you. Dan, is there anything else?
Dan, W7COO, has his hand raised.
Okay, Dan.
Yeah. First, an observation. It's probably not transparent to everybody, but nobody's got POTS anymore if they're calling anybody outside their local switch. So that just seems like an excessive use of lines on the SIT report.
Well,
And-
Dan, that was provided by North Carolina, South Carolina, and Florida. That was their recommendation to make that change, probably because of flooded central offices. I don't know. We didn't question, we didn't query them, but you're welcome to do that.
Well, I just did.
Okay.
And that what
They're not
strikes
here.
me as most impressive is that I watched 2 systems that in the space of 6-9 months covered more ground than the federal government could do with GIS between 1986 and 2000. And as an alternative to ArcEsri's Empire, which is in widespread use for good reason, because it keeps a whole lot of people employed, these 2 systems. The other observation is that with each of these systems, no two EOCs in the US are going to want to have the exact same thing unless they're forced to by their state requirements. So the flexibility is the key aspect of both. And I'm just, how do I say it? I can't tell you how impressed I am because I've never been that
I
impressed.
I wish we were the originators of all the ideas. But
Well,
you know,
and
we
that's the
argue
reason
amongst,
for
we
the
argue
phenomenal
amongst
success.
ourselves. We argue amongst ourselves about whether something has value or not. But in the final analysis, it's not our opinion that matters. It's the people that actually need this. This came out of what's called a hurricane battle rhythm from North Carolina mainly. And they don't really, the people that they query are well-trained and have been briefed over and over and over again all year long. And we just happened to use this form in this exercise because to illustrate a point, and that is that you don't have to be a rocket scientist and trained and have a ComL or be a ComU in an agency or be involved with the county authority having jurisdiction or any other organization in order to get truth from or information out of a rural area. So somebody puts that down landline and they just put unknown. They don't know. They just know their telephone doesn't work, and that's
Yeah, well, I've argued, Dan, I've argued on your point as well. I see.
right.
I imagine that if I were assigned to go assist some shelter or hospital or whatever, and I went in there and I said, "Are your phones working?" And an administrator or secretary picked up the phone and it's dead, she would say no. And I would say, "Well, is that a POTS phone or is that a VoIP phone?" And I would not get a good answer. She would have no idea what I'm talking about. You know, so I guess I have to track down an IT guy or find a closet that has the equipment and see if it's got a network cable or, you know, a twisted pair. I don't know how you determine if it's POTS or VoIP, frankly.
Well, it's a it depends. A lot of people like hospitals have their voice over IP in place that if it goes down, they go back to trunk to POTS.
Right.
As a backup.
So,
And
so how do you know which one it is?
well, they don't, but they're not the ones that make the report. They're not the ones that do that. They're
Well,
people that are specified, just like our ComU in Tennessee. Not anybody can answer the questions that we can answer, and that's why we're trained.
Okay, well, Victor, you had a question. You want to go ahead and ask it?
I do, thank you. Victor, KI7 Mike Zulu from Everett, Washington. You talk about multiple forms that are mappable. Do all these maps come up on, or all this information come up on a single screen? Or
it's the same basic screen, but of course the information available when you click on one of the markers on the map would be different. So in this case, we're getting information like, are the phones working, is the internet, power, and so forth. If it was a map for severe weather, it might be wind speed, wind direction, water, flooding, you know, the appropriate information that's submitted on that form. So the map, at first glance, the markers on the map would look the same, but the information each marker has would be different. And if you went into that filter screen, instead of having filter choices like power, internet, and so forth, you'd have filter choices on wind speed, you know, water level, you know, I don't know, all the different things, temperature, maybe, I don't know, whatever things related to weather.
Mark, could you be asking, can you put more than one mappable form on the same map? Is that what you're asking?
that is the question, because if you've got 20 mappable forms, then they should all be responding to one single screen and then yes, take the filters and pull out the information you want, but you don't want to be looking at 20 different maps.
Yeah, well, I mean, I understand the desirability of that. The difficulty is figuring how to implement that without getting this thing overwhelmingly complicated to use.
Okay.
And
That's why we produce an export file for a state ArcGIS program. Let them do that.
Very
right,
good.
I mean,
we have some of our group right now that are complaining that we're making it too complicated, much less trying to integrate different forms on. And then again, don't forget that you have the ability and the instruction on how to create a form yourself. So if you wanted to have any particular form or format for a form, it's all there how to do that. I don't know if I could do it, but I've read the instructions.
Don't I have to go through the patent office to get it approved?
No.
Thank you. Have a great week, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else with a question? All right, I guess we don't-
GIS is the secret sauce of emergency management. And it always will be, I suspect.
Well, thank you, Phil. Thank you, Josh.